As I said last time, even though Volume 4 was the best volume, Volume 3's heights have yet to be eclipsed, so there was no shortage of scenes to pick from on this list. And I'll say this up front, if a scene is not at least mentioned on this list or the previous one, I probably think it's just okay. There's a lot of scenes like Weiss and Yang vs Flint and Neon that I just don't even know whether I like or not. The first scene I'm going to talk about is the one at the noodle shop. There's dumb things about it like Shopkeep taking Blake's food away because Weiss didn't pay, but it all serves the purpose of character interaction and comedy. Miles, Luna, hell, even acclaimed authors like Oda have a hard time making character interactions distinct. Miles has a really bad tendency to give all the characters in the scene something important to say, meaning all the characters have to know what's going on and realistically wouldn't even need to stop to explain it. So it's no surprise that Carrie Shaw crosswrote this scene. It's no Full Metal Alchemist, hell, it's not even Camp, but you really do get a feeling how all these characters typically interact with each other, except Blake, who is wildly out of character and therefore more tolerable than the default. Carrie also shows his strengths here. Monty was a creator, Miles fancies himself a storyteller, but Carrie is a comedian and on that front he's the best of the three. Just watch his work on RWBY Chibi and Camp and compare it to Latter Day Red vs. Blue if you want more proof that Carrie is one of precious few people on the internet who can actually write a punchline. Speaking of punchline, the next scene is Crow vs. Winter. The quality of the fight is self-evident. There's momentum, a back-and-forth feel, and it does what should have been done back in Volume 1. Show what real huntsmen are capable of and set the bar for the protagonists. It's also a great setup for a subplot that really hasn't gone anywhere, but still could since Volume 6 is going to be an Atlas. Once again, the name of the game is character interactions, and this is one of the few fights in the entire series that actually felt like a physical, wordless dialogue scene. The next scene also involves Winter. Her scene with Weiss in the 4th episode is once again a good character moment. Could it be better? Absolutely. I think this would have been the best time to clue the audience into the fact that Weiss's father is not a real Schnee, and whoever handled the lighting for this entire volume should be shit-canned from any such job descriptions. But this does start the character arc that is reflected in how Weiss uses her summoning. It's only by casting her father's wishes aside and embracing the true Schnee legacy that she's able to succeed. This is the start of that ongoing character arc that I've complained about in Volume 5. The 4th scene is the midpoint and it's Yang vs Mercury. Yep, still looks cool. This fight was a long time coming and it didn't disappoint. There's also this creeping dread. See, these two have never actually interacted before, making this a padded fight. And for Yang, it is just another fight. But this is one of those situations where the show's flaws can loop back around into being a strength, because we know Mercury is a bad guy, and Yang doesn't. And coming right after that maiden exposition dump, that tension starts to tighten. We know, or at least suspect, that this is where Cinder is about to pull the trigger on her plan, and Yang's obliviousness is what creates that tension. The next scene I want to talk about is the maiden fight. Your mileage may vary, but this fight is the one redeeming quality in this episode. We know what is ultimately going to happen, but there's still cool bits in there, and it's good to see what these maiden powers actually do. I actually like how Mercury's legs were revealed, giving the audience credit for piecing the revelation together themselves. And hey, to the character's credit, Yang actually did break Mercury's leg. It just happens that said breaking can be fixed with a couple screw adjustments instead of months of rehabilitation. The use of elemental abilities is also a nice change of pace from the mindless action figure slapping of previous fights. Speaking of slapping, the 6th scene is when Pyrrha slams Jean into the wall. I've gone into detail about this a couple times already, but I'll reiterate. There is something artfully tragic about Jean telling Pyrrha not to let anything get in her way, which by itself is a cliche, but he does so without realizing that in Pyrrha's mind, he's what's holding her back. And the 7th scene is Pyrrha vs Penny, which I've also discussed a few times as my favorite of the tournament fight. Pyrrha and Penny both have goals and plans and are feeling the pressure of fighting their strongest opponent yet, in what is actually a mismatch, but neither of them realize that until it's too late. And the only ones who do know that it's a mismatch are RWBY, who found out by building trust with her friends to where they share their secrets, and Cinder's group, who found out through deceptive and underhanded means. I didn't even realize it until I started working on this video, but this is actually another point of comparison between RWBY and Cinder and why their conflict deserves to be the heart of the show, and further reason why Cinder's role in Fate in Volume 5 infuriates me. For the next scene, I'm actually using a collection of scenes. Pretty much every single thing RWBY does from Penny's death through the unleashing of her silver-eyed powers is absolute bliss. Burning the candle might have turned me from a passive watcher to an active fan, but these scenes turned me into a rabid fanboy for RWBY as a character. Fighting through the tears, she picks up her fallen friend's weapon and fights the Nevermore to protect the rest of her friends, while also giving the best line delivery in the series, gladly volunteering to help Beacon, only to abandon ship so she could ride a rocket locker like a baller to stop Torchwick from using an Elysian battleship. And then her entire fight with Torchwick and Neo, which serves as the freaking thesis statement for everything she's about, what makes her different from everyone else, and reaffirming her hero complex in what I have heard described as writing themselves into the opposite of a corner. Then, even with all that work, even when she's the only one who has the guts to still try to save Pyrrha and Jean, the scattering speed semblance that has allowed her to be on the front lines of every battle fails her, and she is too late to save Pyrrha, thus triggering a brand new power that cements her place as the hero of the story while making her the main reason things didn't get a lot worse. I could have easily flooded this list just with these last 3 episodes. So for the 9th scene, I'll actually instead mention Weiss's bit from episode 11. The moment she sets aside her grievances and takes a page from RWBY's book to rush in to save Aphanis, thus triggering her first successful summon, is the one and only scene in the entire series that has literally made me jump for joy. It's almost as if Weiss ceasing to be a racist twat was a major step in throwing off the shackles her father placed on her, and the final scene is Pyrrha vs. Cinder, which I've talked about at length a couple times. It's the culmination of everything Pyrrha has done in the show and cements Cinder as a real threat. She was toying with Pyrrha. Pyrrha still managed to get a few solid hits in, but it amounted to nothing because Cinder was way out of her league. Her only hope was to buy time for other more capable fighters to arrive like Osmond told her to, and the only bit of help came far too late to save her. It's beautifully tragic, and whatever technical flaws it might have don't matter when compared to the massive amount of emotional impact it has had on the fandom. Even people who hate RWBY really like this scene. It really did set the bar high for the rest of the show and remains one of my favorite finale episodes in recent memory. I'm Mediocrity4. Next up, the 10 good scenes in Volume 2.